Okay, so when we're looking, let's talk a little bit more about prevention, because I know I've certainly got a lot of customers and a lot of people in the group, I think, are worried about the fact they have been home with their dogs for the last however long, been 6 months. People have got new puppies and have probably not left them on their own for very long. We need to be thinking about I did actually talk a little bit about this very early on in lockdown, to suggest that people try and keep their routines as much as possible as they were, but it was very difficult when it was in proper lockdown because we couldn't go out that much, and if we did, we took the dogs with us. So you know, I noticed it even in my own dogs, that they were struggling a little bit, and so I had to look at ways that we could separate ourselves from them. So we've done a lot of that and implemented a lot of that, but I know a lot of people are worried about what's going to happen when their life does go back to normal, whatever that might look like. But I think, you know, dogs are gonna, that have been on their, had their owners around quite a lot, are now going to have to cope with being on their own a little bit. So have you got any words of wisdom?
Yeah, try not to worry. So,
don't panic.
Don't panic. Don't panic. Try not to worry is the first thing, because if your dog has previously been okay on their own and they have got a secure attachment to you, so that means they're not up, like if they feel safe and they're confident and that everything in your relationship with your dog is hunky-dory, then the likelihood is that everything will go back to normal for most people. So the first thing is, don't worry. But there are things that you can start thinking about, and exactly what you were saying actually about trying to adapt a routine that mirrors what you would actually be doing when you start going back to work. That's a really, really good idea, because it's going to be retraining them for the point where you're going back into the, let's say you go back into the office 5 days a week, 9 till 5, and have somebody walk them for an hour at lunchtime. You need to start mirroring that. So for example, my dogs are downstairs at the moment and I'm upstairs in my office. So I'm giving them some opportunity to be on their own. So it's about when, as much as you can before you go back to longer duration absences, start building these into your everyday life so that you're retraining them. So one really useful thing, which we've sort of touched on earlier, is about meeting the dog's needs. So these are things like make sure you set them up really well. So you're making sure that they've got plenty of things to chew on, because as I said, all dogs need to chew, whether they're puppies or older dogs. Make sure they've got activities that they can engage in independently. That's not when you're out, that's all the time, you know, so that they've got access to these things, supervised or unsupervised. They've got access to those things, because if they're able to chew and explore things with their mouths legitimately, then it reduces the need for them to do it on things that you don't want them to. Make sure you're not leaving them on their own too long. So don't just go, let's say your dog is used to you being at home all day long, and then you've got to go to work and you're out of the house for 8 hours. Your dog's going to need the loo. And the dog's going to have been used to going to the toilet, probably ad hoc. So, you know, you might let it out several times during the day when you're at home in lockdown, because you can. So I would start thinking, I'm going to make sure that they get to go to the toilet before I go out, and I'm going to make sure that they have structured toilet breaks again, because if you think about it, when you're at work, they were on structured toilet breaks. So I would try and get a little bit of routine going there that mirrors what you will be doing when you go back to work. But as a rule of thumb, don't leave them on their own too long anyway, because as I say, everybody needs to pee. So it's really quite cruel. I don't need to pee right now. But everybody, it's unrealistic. It's not fair to leave a dog on its own too long. So I'm talking about, you know, 4 or 5 hours maximum, and you're going to need a comfort break. So
would you suggest, I mean, when I was working, you know, proper working, I do work, but you know, proper job.
This is a proper job.
I know it's a proper job, and I work much longer hours than I did before. But anyway, that's the point. When I was out of the house working, I always used to walk them in the morning before I left. Do you think that's a good idea for people to do that? And also, what sort of type of walk would you suggest that they do?
Yeah,
Before they go out for a walk.
So definitely. So I would definitely give them some exercise before you go out to work. And I would make sure that they have been to the toilet whilst they're on a walk. So if you've got a dog that some people's dogs only go to the toilet on a walk. I know dogs are funny things, and some people's dogs won't go. Yeah. So if your dog is the kind of dog that refuses to do a number 2 on a walk and it only does it in a particular place in the garden, make sure they've done that number 2 before you go to work. But yeah, take them on a walk. I would suggest quite a chilled out walk, which is nice because it's going to be early and don't want to be rushing around like a mad thing. So I wouldn't be taking them for a 3-mile jog. I couldn't do a 3-mile jog anyway. But I wouldn't take them for a run. I wouldn't do ball flinging anyway, but I wouldn't be doing ball flinging. I would be doing sniffing, chilled out, relaxed walks with them, because if you think about it, you don't want to pick their adrenaline levels up really, really high. They're all excited, and then you get in, and then you go right bye. And they're like, I'm all excited now. I've got this little bit of extra energy. What am I going to do with it? I'm going to eat the shoes. So you can imagine what kind of dog I would be.
You are like your dog. You're like me.
Oh, yeah. So we are very similar. So what I would suggest is quite a low-key, chilled-out walk. And then when you get back from that walk, probably leave them a little while to settle down after it, like 20 minutes or something. Give them something nice to chew on. So think about things about, I'm going to make sure my dog's been fed, exercised, toileted, and then relaxed a little bit to bring them down. We've got access to something nice to chew. And then they will be in the right frame of mind for a relaxation period where they can go to sleep. So you want to set them up so that they're as relaxed as possible before you go out. I know a lot of people will suggest exercise and tiring a dog out, because then they're going to have less energy to destroy your property. But they should have the right amount of exercise for the dog. But I would do that kind of high octane exercise in the afternoon or evening when you've got in, because then you've got time to let them come down from it when you're there, and you can bring them down slowly.
Yeah, I always kind of use a human analogy that if you go out, running, obviously because we do that a lot. I do actually, but if you go out running and you come back, you're not likely to want to go to sleep straight away, are you? You probably want to come in and chill out, have a shower, and the rest of it. If you go to a yoga class in the evening, you come back and it's all like, sleep. And the same for dogs. Exactly. I think if you take them out for like run, and then come home, they're like, well, what are we doing now? And I had this with Ruby Roo, my youngster. When she comes back from a walk, she's wired generally, so I end up having to do like loads of scatter feeding in the garden or something, just to get her to bring her down again, because she was just she would just go if she could. So I think it's really worthwhile people understanding that wearing them out physically is not a good idea first thing in the morning, because they are
not exactly. It's the timing of it that's critical. So you can do all the amount of exercise that you currently, or you can do all that exercise with your dog, but you need to structure your day to set them up the best way. And overall, over the course of the day, they do need to get the right amount of exercise. That is a really important part of meeting their needs. But it's also got to be not too much exercise depending on the dog. So if your dog is getting a bit more mature, then in the evening, if you're doing a lot, if you think, right, okay, I've done a chilled out walk and it's been really settled and it's had a good day, so this evening I've got a thing about ball flinging. If you're going to do ball flinging and you're doing 50 reps of a ball throw for a dog that's 9 and it's getting a bit creaky, then that's not great either, because you think, oh yeah, I'm giving the dog all this extra exercise and it's doing really well, but you might be putting pressure on those joints, and then if it's lying down all day with achy hips, then it's going to get upset. So it's about thinking about the right kind of exercise as well, for the age of the dog.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I've got a list as well. Just to stop me.
That was about looking
waffling.
at meeting their needs is really important.
Yes, that was meeting their needs. Providing security is really important. So by that, we're talking about providing a secure attachment to your dog. So you want to be playing with your dog, training your bond. If your dog likes cuddles, cuddling your dog. So you need to spend time with them over the course of your day, but you need to be really consistent with your dog. So so that they feel that they can rely on you. And the importance of that, that's not going to generate a more clingy dog. If a dog's got a secure attachment to you, then when you're away from them, they can cope a little bit better because they know you're going to come back. So things that you can do to make them feel secure, playing and training, obviously, we love those things. Then if they're asking for your help, then, so for example, if they're worried about something and they bark and then they look at you and they're a bit worried, or they're whining for some and they don't normally whine, then you need to be attending to them. So it's about understanding the difference between attention seeking and assistance seeking. If they're asking for help, you should always provide help. If they're crying, if they're crying or they're whining and they're distressed, then I would go and assist that dog. If they're pestering you while you're trying on your laptop and they're like, then they're just messing about. That's quite different. And as the owner of your dog, you'll know the difference between a dog that's worried about something, seeking some assistance, compared to a dog that's seeking attention. So I would be really observant with your dog so that you understand the difference between those. If you're not sure, you can get Lisa would be really good, wouldn't you, in helping them understand the body language and the difference between the two. And then you make sure that you are responsive to them, responsive to their needs, because that will help develop that secure attachment and help prevent them feeling concerned when you're not there. And then the other element of security is the idea of a safe haven, which is really lovely idea of creating a nice location in your home where they can go. So quite often we will be the safe base for our dogs. So if you've got a dog, let's say your dog is frightened of thunder, then quite often a dog that hears thunder will go to their owner and cuddle up to them or just be near them because they get reassurance from their owner. If you have a safe haven within your home, your dog can then also use that as their safe base. So it's got two safe bases, really. It's got you, you're there, you're reliable, but it's also got their little den, if you like. And that's the safe haven it's not the same as getting a dog and shoving it in a crate, closing the crate and hoping for the best, because that's not a safe haven. A safe haven is somewhere that the dog feels cozy. It can choose to go in there. It can choose to come out. It's out of the way of traffic, if you like, so it won't be in the middle of a room. That's ridiculous. But it will be like mine is under the stairs, set to one side for the dogs. It's a crate, but the door is always open. It's covered. Nobody ever goes in there. Nobody ever takes the dog out. Nobody ever forces the dog in. And there's always little treats in there, little surprises. So does that kind of make sense about the safe haven?
I'm actually my dogs have got a few different ones and separate ones because I've got two dogs, as you know, and Murphy needs his safe space and Ruby has her place because Murphy generally needs to be on his own away from her when he feels safe. So he's got a safe place mainly in the lounge on the sofa upside down, and Ruby's got her pen which she can go into if she wants to. She's in there at night, but during the day it's open and she can come and go and choose what she wants to do. So, and we have beds everywhere so they've got choices for where they want to go.
And that what's really important about what you just said is that Murphy's got his own one, because for him security sometimes is going to be by himself. So it is really important that he feels that he can choose to go to that place. So if you've got multi-dog homes, some dogs find security in each other and they like being together and they they will cuddle up together and make their own little safe haven. So they might not need individual ones. But if that relationship isn't balanced and one dog prefers to be on its own and feels more comfortable and secure by itself, they need their own little place where the other one can't come in and annoy it like an annoying little brother. Oi, oi. So yeah, that's a really good point.
Cool. Okay. So secure. So meeting the needs, secure place.
Yeah.
What else? Anything else?
Encouraging independence is a good one. So these are things that you gave a really nice example of scatter feeding the dogs, so that they can chill out after a walk. But scatter feeding is a really good one. So it's kind of the exercises they do where they can potter off on their own, choice-based exercise. So by that I mean they can go and do it if they want to, but they can come back to you if they want to as well. But the reward of going off and doing it by themselves is really good, but there's no risk involved, if you see what I mean, because you're always there. So it would be scatter feeding in the garden, or feeding them in a room that's away from you. So you put their bowl down in the kitchen and you go and have a cup of tea in the dining room, for example, and then they can choose to be with you in the dining room, or they can choose to go and have their food. So it's encouraging independence in lots of little ways throughout the day that will strengthen their resilience to being on their own. And they'll find that being on their own, going off and exploring on their own, is quite a rewarding activity. They don't need to be with you to feel secure. So yeah, things like that. Have you got any exercises that you other ideas?
So I quite like, I've probably stolen this from someone else really, but I quite like the idea of tying a stuffed toy somewhere. So getting a Kong, and you can actually get them with string attached now, but you can thread a bit of string through a Kong, stuff it, and then tie that somewhere, so that it encourages the dog to go off and have their Kong somewhere away from you rather than with you. That makes sense. So I quite like that one. And sort of a new thing I've been introduced to is like free work. So similar to scatter feeding, but and it helps with confidence building as well for dogs that are a little bit lacking in confidence. Just having some random stuff in the garden and hiding treats on it, so they go and explore, and they have to move things around, and they're just on their own independently doing stuff, but also interacting with novel things as well. So a couple of those sort of things I would, and things like
really nice.
Good, like having a
and I quite like that, because it's not all food based, is it? So if they build their confidence to go and explore with those exercises that you were talking about, the free work things, they might find a couple of treats, but actually they'll start finding the reward just by doing it. Just by exploring.
It's great for puppies. It's really good for puppies. It's the kind of thing we do at classes, but just getting them to explore novel things like cardboard boxes and stuff.
And then what else was I thinking? There was something else. Oh, well, we're talking about food, so we might as well talk about how to use food as well. So quite a few people fall foul of stuffing a Kong, and then just before they go out, they give the dog the Kong, and then they go out, and then they're associating their absence with the Kong. So one of my pieces of advice is not to create a dependence or a relationship between a food item and your departure, because quite a lot of dogs will, if they're really stressed, they won't eat it anyway. Some of the other dogs will eat everything in the Kong, and then the gap between the time they've finished and the time they've got back, they will be distressed because you're not there and they finished their chew. What we want to be able to do is, if you're using Kongs, they are really, really good distractions, but we want to be able to use them throughout the course of the day at random times, so that they don't become a cue for, oh, she's going out and it's going to be horrible, which is quite often what happens, is that the Kong gets presented and then the dog goes, okay, she's going out now, and it becomes this cue for an unsafe separation. So the way around that is to use it multiple times when you're not going out. So using it as for encouraging independence is quite a good option. It's tricky with separation about whether or not to make your departure predictable or not, because using the Kong as a cue makes the departure predictable because of the association. But then if you're unpredictable about when you're going out, that can stress a dog out as well. So what we need to start thinking about doing is, we need the dog to be able to predict that you're going out, but it is for a time period that you can cope with. So what I tend to do is I will get people to work in very, very small time periods where the dog is presented with a cue. So it might be a particular mat, for example, and that is the signal. I'm going out now, but it's okay because it's the safe cue. Put the mat down, go out for a split second or 1 second, depends what they're working on, or 1 minute, come back, and then a little while later they can have the relaxation chew toy or whatever it is. So it's about having cues are useful in as much as they can tell the dog when it's safe that you're going out, but be really careful when you're using food toys when you depart, that they don't become a cue for an unsafe departure. So in other words, don't just give them a Kong only when you go out and hope for the best. Use Kongs willy-nilly throughout the day. They've got lots of different associations, so they're not a cue for an unsafe departure.
And I guess vary it a little bit, so it's not just Kongs, but edible chews or puzzle toys or a cardboard box full of, and just vary a little bit, so it's not always, it's not, like you say, it's not predictable. But I mean, it is interesting because for my dogs, they always get something when I leave, but I know. But I do that because I know they're happy for me to go. So it's almost like, oh, you're going, brilliant. Can I have my treat? And I almost think with my dog, it's like, oh God, thank God she's going. I can sleep now.
Go out, I want a chew.
But I've always done a little bit of that, even when they were puppies. So it's getting them used to me going and knowing that actually it's fine because I'm going, but I will come back. It's not a big deal.
But they haven't got, so for them, they haven't formed an association with the chew toy and something that they don't like.
No.
And the something that they don't like for dogs with separation problems, the something that they don't like is the absence. So your dogs will get their chews. I'm sure you don't just give them when you go out. You probably give them, I bet you give them occasionally.
They get a lot.
Exactly. So there's no one-to-one association between the chew and the departure. They get them because they're gorgeous. Exactly. So it's about that one-to-one association of, I don't want the food to become an indicator that you're going out for a time the dog can't cope with. I want cues to be for times they can cope with, if you see what I mean. Yeah.
Cool.
Other thing for prevention is a big one, is preventing frustration. And a lot of that is going to be exactly what you did with Murphy, is preventing them from being presented with the stimuli that's causing them the problem. So if it is somebody walking up the drive and closing the curtains is enough, do that. Or it might be that they need to be located at the back of the house rather than at the front of the house. A lot of dogs, they will be at the front of the house, at the front of the property, running backwards and forwards in front of the window all day, and that's really that's really stressful for them. Day after day. Can you imagine how that is building up their stress levels inside? So preventing frustration, you can do things like window frosting, relocating their bedding. If sound is a trigger, try white noise. So have you can get soundtracks for things, put the radio on, those sort of things. They're obvious, easy things. Sorry?
I was going to say, you can ask Alexa now to play dog music.
Oh.
She plays a nice range of classical music for dogs.
Yeah. So, exactly. Again, so using technology to help you. So if your dog this is for the dogs, so this is the dogs that have got frustration, so they're your reactive dogs, they're reacting to the stimuli. So this is where we go back to these clusters, these groups of dogs. If your dog falls into one of these categories, then to help prevent the problem, prevent them having access to the stimuli, block it somehow, is a really quick win, really. And the other thing, which actually I think you'll probably be really good at coming up with some ideas for, is teaching frustration tolerance. So games and exercises where they have to wait a bit before they get what they want. So do you have things like that you do in your classes?
Yes, we do. I mean, we do sort of like impulse control exercises, but even things, just simple things like, you know, the scatter feeding, the Kongs and the puzzle toys are all good for frustration tolerance, because they're all having to work and have a delay before they get the thing they want. But when we will do, I'm just trying to think of exercises that we do now. You put me on the spot.
Put you on the spot there. You probably do a lot of them, but it's things like getting them to exactly what you've described though. Delay. It's a delay before they get what they want.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
so
like a simple exercise we might do in class, for instance, is a restrained recall is frustration tolerance. So holding on to a puppy while an owner moves away and then they call the puppy, you know, that is frustration tolerance, because the puppy's got to cope with the fact that the owner's moved away. Obviously, if they're showing any signs of frustration, don't panic. We wouldn't hold them for too long, but we build that up. And other things is, you know, again, you know, gently restraining the puppy or dog and throwing a treat out, waiting a couple of minutes, then let them go get it. You know, all things where there's a delayed satisfaction. What's the word? Delayed gratification. That's the one. So all that, even little exercise like that are useful. There was an exercise that and wasn't me actually, but another colleague did, where it was like called chicken in a basket. So the food was in a basket and the dog had to work out how to get the food. It was a case of disengaging from the food to get the food, kind of thing. So,
that's hard.
I know, it was a hard one. But all those little exercises are quite useful. The mousy game, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's nice. I like mousy.
Mousy is a good one.
That's Jane. Is that Jane Arden's?
I think it's Jane Arden, a bit of Absolute Dogs as well, to be honest. I think they copy each other, don't they?
It's difficult to know where we pinch all these up.
I know. Yeah. So frustration tolerance training is frustration tolerance and self-control both need work, and that's something we do bring into our classes.
I think it's really important, prevention, because a lot of the problems, so out of three of the groups, the three of the four clusters, frustration is a really key part of the problem. So all the work that you can do with puppies and adult dogs to help them cope with frustration, it's going to be really helpful stuff.
Cool.
So puppies are really similar. Should we talk about preventing puppy problems?
Yes, preventing puppy problems.
It's the same. So just rewind.
I mean, it's similar. It is similar, isn't it? But I guess similar. Prevention is easier with puppies than it is with a.
Definitely. It definitely is, because, for a start, I think when you've got a puppy, your expectations are a little bit more realistic, because you expect them to piddle and chew. But meeting their needs. Have we talked about whether or not they are actually properly toilet trained? So that's really important. And making sure that they have enough stuff to chew, and making sure they have enough rest as well, because if they're too tired, they chew a lot more. They get a lot more.
And I think that is one of the not biggest mistakes, but mistakes I think new puppy owners make, because they think, well, I'm just going to tire my puppy out before I go, and then they come back to destruction. And it's because they actually don't need lots of physical exercise. They just become rattier basically. So sleep, rest,
it makes logical sense. You see why people do it, because they think, I've got to wear this little tinker out, it's driving me crackers, what am I going to do? I'm going to wear it out. But unfortunately it can be quite counterproductive. With puppies, it's we started, I think we brushed on attachment and making sure that the dogs have a secure attachment and providing security. This is super important with the puppies, but again, it's not about giving in to their every whim. It's about being reliable, it's about being sensitive, attending to their needs consistently and efficiently. So what that it boils down to is things like, don't let them cry it out. So for example, if if you're working on your overnight stuff, it's not a good idea to let your puppy cry it out, because you're not responding to their needs. You're you're ignoring them, and then you're becoming an unreliable attachment figure, and that's a bit of dangerous ground, really, because the dogs that are more likely to suffer from separation anxiety is thought, not, I don't know if there's any data for it, but the thinking at the moment is that those are the ones that haven't really got a secure attachment. So we don't want to, we want to put them in a position where you're reliable.
And I guess also, if they are getting distressed to that point when you've left them, what they're experiencing straight away, a negative experience or association with you not being there. And that's why I think it's really important that people do understand that leaving puppies to cry out is like we probably used to a few years ago, because that's what we were told to do, wasn't it? Let them cry out is actually not good for them. And actually just getting them gradually used to you not being there in a positive way is what we should be looking for, ideally.
Yeah, definitely. It's the gradual, like you say, it's the gradual exposure to it. That's the way to build them up and build that resilience. It's lots of small positives when they're on their own, rather than closing them in a crate and hoping for the best and ignoring it if they get distressed. And as I said, with the older dogs, there's a fine line between attention seeking and you don't want to be attending to their every whimper, but if you've got to check that they're safe. So if they're crying, are they safe? They're uninjured? Have they got water? Do they need the toilet? Are they warm? If you've met all of their needs quietly and without giving them too much fuss, then put them back for another nights. But don't just leave them to cry, because they're asking you, they're telling you something. So it's hard, especially if you're not getting much sleep.
Yeah, cool. Okay, anything else for puppies? Would you say?
No, as I say, it is really similar to what I've suggested with the adult dogs. So meeting their needs, provide security, gradual exposure, and the frustration tolerance as well is really important.
And I guess it's important not to leave them on their own when they're too young. It's like you need to be with them when they're really little anyway, and not be on their own. And then once they're at a reasonable age, then start just having little micro absences, even in the house, isn't it? Just that so they get used to you not, like the things you were saying about feeding them in a separate room, doing the scatter feeding, having a tied-in tree at the back of the crate, something like that. So they get used to having a bit of distance from you, but in a safe place to start with.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a multiple tiny little separations throughout the day, so that it's just one of those things. Trying not, like, if you are practicing your separations from your puppy, make sure you're not building that one-to-one dependence on the food toy, for example. But also don't make a big deal out of the fact that you're going. It's just a very relaxed non-event, if you like. So something I say to my clients sometimes, if it's appropriate, is if it's a couple, I'll say, well, when you're together, you don't announce to the other one, right, I'm going to the toilet now, goodbye, I'll be back in a minute, farewell, I love you. And then when you come back, you go, I'm back. You just go quietly. You just potter off, and then you come back again, and it's not a big deal, and there's no hoo-ha involved. So with puppies and all dogs, it's that kind of approach where you're very relaxed about it, and you're not overly fussing them when you do leave or when you come back. You're not trying to build a connection between goodbye, farewell, here's a Kong, it's going to be awful, I'm leaving you. We just pop into the loo.
Cool. Okay. That's puppies.
That's puppies.
The last thing was just about post-lockdown. We have touched on it a little bit. But I think we've already touched on it, really, haven't we, about making sure.
I think we've merged it all.
Yeah, building
really,
up to get your life being. I mean, what I advised very early in lockdown was for people to kind of continue to replicate what their routine was like before, i.e. leaving their dogs, which was a bit tricky, but it was just things like, you know, going and sitting in your car for half an hour, leaving your dogs, and that's what we were doing, you know. And similar to
do practice separations. Don't just go back to work and hope for the best. Plan for it. So if you know that you're going back in a couple of weeks, I like a graph. I like a spreadsheet. So I plot it out, and I'd say, right, I need to be, this is where I need to be in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
This is for a dog where we know they generally are okay at the moment. So I'm going to build up to it gradually. Sometimes my absences will be small, sometimes they'll be big, sometimes they'll be small. But on the whole, we'll be getting to that level where we reach the goal. So if your goal is 3 hours on their own, I might do half an hour, 10 minutes, half an hour, and then 2 hours. Do you see what I mean? So it's small, big, randomly, but on the up. So you plan it out so that they get used to positive associations gradually again, but without being too dependent on the food, obviously. And then if you note, and I would use technology as well. So if you're a bit nervous about going back to work and how it's going to affect your dog, do a couple of little separations, but get one of these, use your smartphone to record them, or you can get some little cameras which you can link up to your smartphone, and then you can observe what they're doing, and you can see, are they settled? Are they barking? How are they barking? And then if you feel like they're becoming distressed, then I would get back to them, but make a note, like, quickly, don't let them suffer. But I would make a note about what point they get stressed. I'm going to start working way below that point and get them used to separations gradually again.
And I was watching, I think you might watch the same one, a webinar about separation anxiety a few weeks ago, and it was a quite interesting point on there that sort of mentioned about what does your house sound like when you're in the house. And I imagine with lots of people with lockdown, when they've had the children at home and they've been at home, the house has probably been quite noisy and quite busy, and then all of a sudden if you go, it's going to be like deathly silent. So I think it's a way of trying to bridge that gap a little bit, like you say, about having the radio on, maybe having the TV on, maybe having some other sounds around, so the dog is not suddenly gone from like busy household to silence. And that's likely when they're going to be picking up other external triggers and noises as well that can create some of the problems you've talked about. So I thought that was an interesting point, right? Like maybe you can record on your phone what your house sounds like when you're around.
I like that. No, it's really good. Yeah, because it's going to be such a stark contrast, isn't it? From a busy family home to silence while everybody's at school and at work.
And I think the other difficult thing that's going to happen is that I think when people do go back to offices, they're not going to be going back 5 days a week. It's going to be like sort of 2 days on, 3 days off, probably. And that's going to be quite hard for dogs to get used to. So I think, what you were saying about having your absences very varied is a really good idea, because I think some days we're probably going to be around, and other days they're going to be out again. So it's going to be hard for our dogs to adjust, I think. But dogs are good. They can adjust to things like that.
They're brilliant. Well, they're brilliant, aren't they? We love dogs. If you are on like a split shift, then it's useful to do absences when on your home days as well. So if let's say you're at home for 3 days, and then 2 days you're going to have the weekend as well. Let's say you're at home for 4 days. I would, on those days off, I would go out for an hour or two if you can, without the dog. If you're worried that your dog is going to have these problems, it's really helpful.
Sometimes I want to get out without the dogs, to be honest. Get out.
But and sometimes it's hard to stage these things, especially we're not all as keen to go to the shops anymore and to go and go for a coffee and those sort of things. But if you could find time in your day to go sit in the car and make your work phone calls or whatever, but just have that time where your dog is on their own on those home days, that will reduce the contrast between the working in the office days and the working at home days.
Yeah. I mean, I know, and also I know from your notes that you recommend also people, you know, if they've got a new puppy, for instance, and they're going to be out, then to look at getting a dog walker or pet sitter or puppy pop-in person, which I think is a really good idea. Obviously, we both used to do that, but we don't anymore. But I know a lot of good people that do. My advice, just hijacking on your notes really, is rather than wait until you're back at work to get that person in, I would get them in now to get your dog and your puppy used to going out with that person, even when you're at home. And also, I know for a fact that dog walkers and daycare centres and all that stuff are getting very busy, starting to get very busy again, and there's not so many of them around at the moment. So I would definitely look at trying to find somebody and get some good recommendations and get your dog or puppy booked in with them now.
That's a really good idea.
So they're just getting used to going out as well. So if anyone needs any recommendations, I know a lot of people, some good dogs.
I like that idea, because it's going to get them used to the dog walker, but then when they get back, you're going to be there initially. Yeah, exactly. So it helps the transition, doesn't it?
Yeah, and also that's been so useful. I've learned a lot. I don't know about anyone else, but I've learned a lot, and
I hope so.
It's really good to have a discussion. I think it's going to be something that hopefully it's not going to be something that's a lot of problem, but I know that it's something you're really interested in. So I will, at the end of this video, put your details up. If anyone wants to get in touch with you, they can. Because you're back now from your university days. Cool. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
And we should do this again soon on another subject.
Cool.
All right, you take care. See you soon.
Bye.